All right, hello everyone that are currently joining us. We are excited that you're all on the line today to talk with these fantastic panelists. I will jump in. We've got a lot of folks that are joining us. Just a bit of housekeeping, because this is a little bit different than a Zoom meeting. We are using Zoom webinar, and for those of you who have not used this platform before, you're not going to have the same tools that you do during a Zoom meeting. And so I just wanted to make that aware to you all. Hi, Nancy. Thanks for checking in. So you can use the chat function, as Nancy just discovered, and you can use the Q&A function. So as we're moving throughout today, I hope that you will feel free to chime in with some questions for our particular panelist, and we will make sure to get to those for you. So without further ado, I am Heather McCullough with Society 54. I know a number of you, as I'm watching you join the room, but for those of you whom I don't know, welcome. And thank you for joining us today. I'm going to start with Michelle Friends, who is, at least on my screen, to my left, on the top left. She's the Executive Director of Fairfield Woods in Denver, Colorado. And instead of me going through the wonderful accolades that all of these folks have, I am just going to share with you some things that are about them that you might not be able to find out from their bios. So Michelle felt like most people would know this, but I'm going to throw it out anyways. She has a pig named Malcolm. She is she started out as a sports marketer, which I'm sure translated well into her legal career. She's an avid snowboarder, and she loves music. And with Red Rocks right down the road from her, she has been to more concerts than she can count. And in one summer went to 10 concerts, which I am very jealous about. And her all-time favorite, the Beastie Boys, but got to see Tom Petty right before he died. So what a fantastic summer that sounds like. Right below me, I have Howard King. Howard is a corporate and securities attorney at Womble Von Dickinson. He's actually here in Charlotte, North Carolina, which is where I am also located. And Howard spent 2 years living in Ghana, Sierra Leone, and on the Ivory Coast. And in some ways, he says that he had a reverse legal career. He went from in-house, then to small law, and then to big law. So he kind of moved the opposite direction of a lot of folks. And then last but certainly not least, catty corner for me is Cynthia Voth, who is the Chief Client Officer at Miller, Nash, Graham, and Dunn. She is coming to us from Seattle, Washington. An avid hiker and backpacker. Her longest trip to date has been 71 miles in 4 days, 3 nights on the trail. She did that last summer with her daughter, and one day hopes to hike the Pacific Crest Trail. She has 2 kids, a son who graduated college last year and a daughter who is a sophomore in college and is currently at home like a lot of folks. And for those of you who know Cynthia, you will know this. She is an rabid, she said avid, women's soccer fan. And she attended the last 2 Women's World Cup finals. And the last one where the US won, which was fantastic. And she was in Lyon, France, which is pretty exciting. So without further ado, we will kick this off. And we are so excited to have this group sharing their information. And when we started kicking around the idea of doing a webinar and talking about this topic specifically, we immediately kind of landed on these 3 folks. But why you? Cynthia, you want to kick us off?
Sure. So my role at my firm is very client-facing. So I supervise our marketing and BD team, but also IT records, legal staffing, and I think that sums it up. I also am in Seattle, Washington. So some of my suspicion was that we were the original epicenter. Of course, it quickly moved to New York because it got more intense in New York, but Seattle for the longest time, or what felt like a long time, was the focal point for COVID in the US. So this is something that our firm in particular was dealing with on the very, very early end. The stay-home orders came early here. So we were feeling the impact. Our clients were feeling the impact as a regional firm based in the Northwest. It was something that we were addressing pretty early on. So my suspicion is that might have something to do with why I was asked to participate.
Your suspicions would be correct, not to mention that you're a wealth of knowledge about many things. Michelle, you want to jump in?
So I serve with Cynthia on the LMA board of directors, and obviously LMA had to make some hard decisions about our major events this year. And so I really got wrapped into COVID-19 because of those decisions and the board's review of what the year would look like for LMA. And because of that, I was ahead of the curve. We sent out our first communication about COVID, just kind of telling our employees that we knew it was out there, here was resources. At that time, we really weren't concerned. That was early March, and I had consulted with Cynthia a couple times about various things her firm was looking at and potential plans we should be putting in place. And so I just kind of started sharing on social media. And I suspect that the fact that I've kind of been out there on social media is why I got selected today.
Thank you, Michelle. And Howard.
I'm kind of the same as both of y'all, except for, and from the lawyer side of it, is I had clients that were more directly, I guess, immediately impacted by it, that were in the trade show business, and so kind of felt it maybe earlier than others, especially here on the East Coast, just given the nature of what random clients and what industries were impacted by this. So that played kind of the first role, and then I've also pretty early on started kind of pushing out information and trying to get kind of at least content out to people so that they could understand some of the legal side of the issues that are going on and some of the just various kind of legislation that's coming out of Washington. And again, that was also late February, early March, all that was happening, which was, you know, just 2 months ago, which is completely insane if you think about it. And then the direct connection is Jill Hughes with Society 54. She and I have a relationship for a couple of years now. So.
Thank you. So when we were on our prep call, the four of us, Howard mentioned that we should never let a crisis go to waste. Since we are all in the middle of that right now, whether or not we go back to our offices next week, next month, next year, I know that your firms are in planning mode right now. So if you have any concrete things that your firms are thinking about doing as you ramp back up and get back into work, could you share any of those with our group? And Cynthia, I'll start with you.
Sure. So I'll piggyback off of Howard's phrase and also add that disruption is the mother of invention. And I think that as challenging and as frankly scary as the COVID pandemic has been to all of us personally and professionally, I always try to find what's right about things. And I think one instance of making lemonade out of lemons has been our move to better leverage our technology as a firm and update some of our processes. So our billing process, for example, was very largely paper driven. We certainly have paperless technology at our firm that makes it possible to do it all electronically and frankly much more efficiently on our end and for our clients so that they can get their bills faster and manage their budgets better. But we had, law firms are slow to adapt such changes. And so people like to hold out and do what they've always done because that's more comfortable. This has forced our hand. And so we are now in our second month of paperless pre-bills. We have attorneys who are wondering why we weren't doing this sooner, even though we've been messaging it quite literally for years. So I think there's some opportunities there, certainly also being more nimble with our clients' requests about how to receive their bills. They don't necessarily want to receive a very thick paper packet in the mail anymore, but we didn't offer and they didn't ask, and so we are updating some of those systems. So wearing that hat, that is something where we are making some good inroads, and it's here to stay.
Fantastic. How about you, Howard? What's happening in your practice or at Womble?
So from the Womble side of it, I think we're still, at least from, what I'm seeing and hearing, still, we're doing things around the edges that are more efficient with regard to billing and kind of that are very targeted kind of items that we can change and need to change in this environment. But from a big picture, in terms of kind of the post-COVID workforce or the existing COVID workforce and what does the workplace look like, we're still a little up in the air on that of trying to figure out what does that look like with, people like me who's got a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old and school's closed. My wife and I both work. Going to work doesn't solve the daycare issue. And so that's still TBD on from a firm perspective. From a kind of personal practice perspective, one thing that has definitely changed is instead of waiting for the phone to ring, there's a lot more of me reaching out, which is a little counterintuitive for lawyers to be doing. And that oftentimes you'll have a call that lasts 30 minutes, of which only 10 or 15 minutes may be billable. And the rest is just, what is your life like? What are you doing? Just coronavirus conversations of how it's impacting you and them. And so that it's helpful from a touching and feeling portion of kind of client development. But it also kind of is also reassuring on a human scale to talk to people about just lives.
I couldn't agree more. Thank you for that. Michelle, anything concrete that you all are putting into practice?
A lot of the stuff that you guys have already mentioned, billing was heavy on paper before, has gone electronic. Because of that, we are doing a lot more videos through IT and training instead of sending out these long step-by-step emails where we know how to do Zoom videos pretty quickly now. So our IT guys were shifting to that with some things. I've looked at a new phone system that connects you to just your cell phone. So you have to think about forwarding stuff from your office. But I think the bigger thing that was something we already had thought about is the staffing mix and what is staff going to look like in the future coming out of this. Our staff have been asking for a work from home policy for a long time. We obviously know we can do that now, but not only can our staff work from home, it gives us the ability to hire staff all across the country now. I even actually have already had one staff member that, asked if they could stay virtual permanently, and they moved out of state. And that's very unique for a one office firm here in Denver to have somebody in now West Virginia. And so, starting to think about what is staff in our real estate going to look like in the future. And frankly, this morning, that was the first time I even had a conversation with someone that it might be time to go back and look at our strategic plan and add a COVID piece into that. And so a lot of conversations of, what we had planned on doing a year ago is not now what we're planning to do for the next year.
And to jump in on that, like I thought of this too, of the staffing part of it is with kids, a lot of my work is now happening in the evening after they go to bed. And I don't necessarily need staff between 9 and 5. It's oftentimes be better if it was West Coast time to kind of cover me more so in the evening when I can, when I may need more cover.
And that's exactly the conversation I had with someone about an outsourced person, is that person would run into the evening time to do those dictations or those filings that come in after 5 o'clock. We really were never a firm that needed someone at night, but now to have someone that works 8 to 9 o'clock at night to do that, to help attorneys that are in that same situation.
Yeah, we have evening word processing too. We've had it for a little bit, but I think that the need to flex hours, especially if parents are having to attend to some homeschooling needs during the day and they're not able to get back at work, or if they're having family dinner or whatever, even under normal circumstances, it's nice to have that flexibility of resources, because otherwise if you have to wait till the morning, it can make it a little challenging.
So we talked about you guys mentioned a couple of the sort of concrete or processes type things that people are embracing and doing differently. But are there any other positive habits or new efforts or initiatives that you're seeing embraced and developed during this time? Howard, I'll start with you.
I would say maybe more of, there's definitely more of just the phone conversations and the chit chat that goes along with that is true value, more so in a lot of ways than the Zoom check-ins and the Zoom socials where you know, it's hard to get a personal conversation with 3 or 4 other people on your team that you would normally have in an office environment. And so that's something everyone's kind of leveraging. There's a lot more texting and cell phone communication with everyone in your life right now. And so that's just a different in this new environment as well. You know, is it positive versus the office? It's tough to judge that, but it's definitely different, and then you're adapting in that way.
Cynthia, you were nodding your head when I was asking that question.
So many things have, I think, improved. So one out of the bat, I think we all saw this and it went a little extreme, was creation of content. So I have attorneys who are brilliant and just for whatever reason over the years have never really leveraged that into creating quality content, whether it's written or webinar or on-demand webinar or whatnot. And so we did find people just fascinated by all of the changes in regulations and, you know, everything going on as it would impact the businesses. Finally getting to creating some really quality content. We saw our hit rates go up significantly on our website. Our webinar attendance was just off the charts for us. So I think we've created some good new habits. We've obviously, I think, modulated like a lot of people where it was really intense at the beginning and then now it's a bit more curated. But I've enjoyed seeing that because certainly anyone who has a website, it's all fine and dandy to put up some profiles and have the attorneys demand why aren't people coming to our website, but really it boils down to, is there something worthwhile for them to come and visit? And now I feel like we can answer that question much better as a yes. I also feel like from a networking standpoint, as Howard was saying, developing relationships is so key to business development or client service. And you know, it's one thing to go to a meeting and a conference, and there certainly can be great connections made there. But these check-ins have had to be a lot more on the personal nature because you're visiting each other basically in your own homes. You're having kids walk through the background. There might be dogs barking in the background. I feel like we're learning so much more about the people both we're working with in our firms, but also our clients, that it really is helping fast track relationships to some extent for those who are actively participating in those reach outs. So I think when you can see we both have chocolate labs, or I have a 5-year-old daughter too who's dancing in the background and, you know, asking me to hand you a teddy bear or something like that, we can relate to one another as people, and it gives some affinity and connection there. So I feel like the attorneys are starting, you know, have seen the value of doing that and have had some really good success with those reach outs.
So I've heard from a number of my the attorneys that I coach that the clients are asking them very personal questions, which they haven't experienced a lot of that in the past, particularly with people that they were just doing a matter for and getting through it and on to the next thing. And so to them, it's been very impactful that all of a sudden clients are really interested in them and what's going on with them. And it's changed the relationship.
Yeah, and if you think about behavioral economics and how people make decisions to buy, right? It's do they have affinity towards someone? Because we usually say it's know, like, trust, but it's really like, trust, know in terms of the decision matrix, right? And so if you feel like you have this connection and you like somebody, you're going to remember to call them first, or you're going to be more inclined to call them first to take care of, you know, whatever your need is.
So Michelle, what about at Fairfield and Woods? Is there anything going on where you see these positive habits and efforts being continued into the future?
Very similar to Cynthia in content creation and also updating content, because this is so fluid that, you know, something that went out a month ago is probably a lot different now. So making sure we're updating. Actually got an update from marketing manager yesterday that, yeah, our click-through rate and opening of what our emails is through the roof compared to what it normally is. But I think one of the biggest things that has been a change for me in how I oversee business development and marketing is I've partnered a lot more with the attorneys. I've never done that historically. Usually I'm there to be the coach and to give them ideas. And I've partnered, I have my second webinar with one of our attorneys tomorrow morning. I've co-authored an article with our attorneys over this time. And that's just so that they can have the employment law aspect, or, you know, the legal aspect of something, and also kind of the how that you implement it. You know, as the executive director, I'm the one walking around the office thinking about how are we going to bring people back into our facility? What do we need to think through? And now I have, you know, the legal side of that. And it's crazy that I've actually had a lot of clients reach out to me directly, and that's not a relationship I've had in the past, where they reach out to me directly and, you know, what do you think about this? I had a couple this morning, and it's not just been law firms, you know, it's been salons, and we have car dealership clients. And so, you know, I'm hearing from a mixed group of people, which is definitely expanding my skill set and knowledge of how different industries are operating through this. But yeah, you know, everybody is out there, you know, trying to figure this out. So there's a lot we can learn by just sharing, you know, our thought process of reopening or marketing, or, you know, all of those kind of different things, technology, everybody's doing it. So that's been a big change for us, the different partnerships to contact our clients and create relationships.
So for you, Michelle and Cynthia, how are you becoming a part of those conversations? How are you making sure that you are one of the ones that gets tapped when the attorneys say, my client needs X, and you might be the right resource, not just me as the attorney? How do you get that conversation started?
Again, it's almost like the same reason that I'm here with you guys today. It's that I just started putting information out about COVID early on. I started having conversations with other law firm leaders, other marketers. I was in this kind of early, and I think that people knew that. And I was very thoughtful in how I broke down our email communications and, you know, resources I was putting out, and I would, you know, try to add on to that. And so I think that internally people saw that. And then as I started to speak through LMA and just different things out here, connect with different people online, that my attorneys were seeing that, and yeah, just were saying, I think that you might know a little more about this than I do. You know, I've been watching our attorneys, you know, I have obviously, like every firm, we have a PPP expert, and we have a CARES Act expert now. And you know, we have, you know, our force majeure and our contract people. And I've just kind of been helping bring all of that together with our marketing manager online. And so I think that they just saw that and approached us about it. It was very organic.
Yeah, I mean, I think internal PR or internal business development, relationship building, it's the same principles as our attorneys are using with their clients, and they need to see you as someone who can help them with something. And so, you know, exactly what Michelle said, put yourself out there, be helpful, be credible, provide information that they might not have, and the rest will come.
And for you, Howard, how are you leaning on the professional staff within Womble during this time?
And just to kind of piggyback on all that, for me, it's also kind of the enthusiasm of people interested in the idea and willing to put themselves forward and kind of work with you on messaging. And like for me personally, you know, over the past 10 weeks or so, I've probably drafted first or second drafts of 10-ish, at least 9, 10, or 11 client alerts. And so, you know, it's a significant amount of work to do that, in addition to doing, you know, your law practice work side of things. And you're looking for people that are enthusiastic and that want to help you and get the information out. And so just raising your hand is kind of get you to and in front of the lawyers, that's super helpful. And, you know, we're seeing probably the same kind of, what's interesting is, you know, all the law firms I feel like are kind of there in terms of they understand PPP, they have their person. It's been interesting to see how quickly and when people did arrive at that kind of location, because some firms move faster than others. And one thing that kind of, I guess, benefited me to a degree is, you know, I was to a degree sort of a first mover in a lot of ways at least here in Charlotte, and then in my law contacts here in town and banking contacts. And so I've kept up that momentum now for 10 weeks. And now I'm, you know, people have questions, I'm getting phone calls, I'm getting the thank you emails. And so those relationships have definitely grown and prospered because of, you know, I've been giving the emails early enough that people now know to read mine and they'll skip everyone else's. And it's, you know, it's developed. I've gotten a handful of clients out of the referral process. You know, it's it's coronavirus, so it's not a great time to be getting clients, but at the same time, it's long-term, it's a good play.
Well, and if you can provide great value to them during all of this, imagine what you can do on the other side for them.
Right.
So I think it's a great time to be getting some referrals. So kind of turning to the darker side of all of this, what are your concerns about what's next? Howard, how about you?
So I've been doom and gloom from the beginning on all of this. I am still doom and gloom about kind of everything. Just in terms of the, winter things, what does September, October, November look like? Where are you going to physically be working? School situations. I think I can see this being a new normal for a period of time, and the new normal when you're a business owner, which I'm not here, but if I was, there are, what you're seeing now is kind of the phase 2 of furloughs, the phase 2 of asking people to take time off on sabbatical and get a portion of paid leave. I could totally see that happening over the course of the next couple of months, but hopefully not. But I like to prepare for that.
How about you, Cynthia?
Yeah, I always like to look at the positives. So I think that there are a lot, and even changes to whether we're remote working for an extended period of time, there are pluses to that. Even reducing our office footprints if we don't need as much physical space in the long term. I think there are some positives to that as well in terms of reducing overhead for firms. It gives us some other possibilities. I do think that we are just at the beginning, honestly, of feeling the impact. I think it was easy for March financials and April financials to look decent because it was still time worked before the real impact. Ultimately, it depends on how our clients are impacted by all of this. And, they can only sustain these types of hits for so long. We'll see how the return of some of their businesses rolls out, but we're just going to have to see how that impacts our firms and how many more discounts they ask for, or alternative fee arrangements, or how late they make their payments, and what work is available versus not. So I think it's too soon to have the crystal ball about it. I also think putting on the legal marketing hat, the furloughs and reductions and layoffs, certainly there's been a wave, there's another wave. We read it every morning in American Lawyer, or, Above the Law, of other firms that are making these reductions. And it's a tough hit when you're trying to do great work and your team is being reduced. Thankfully, I personally haven't had that impact, but never say never, unfortunately. I'm hoping that won't be our case, but it is tough, and I hope not to see more of that, but we just don't know. And if the firms start feeling the pinch, then we know that they start making reductions across the board. So that was depressing.
We'll get lighter in a second, I promise.
Okay, good. That'd be good.
Michelle, how about you?
I think we're going to see major shifts in pricing. Cynthia alluded to that, and I will do my LMA plug that, we're reworking our content for our P3 conference in June. It went virtual. I think there's going to be some great stuff in there about pricing. And while firms are cutting back, I think now's the time for everybody to get educated on that. My one registration, I've now shifted. My managing partner is attending, my marketing manager is attending. I would have never sent 3 people before, but now reassessing our pricing models, understanding, flat rates, all the creativity out there with alternative fees and arrangements. You're going to have to offer discounts, and you want to be able to maintain that when you come out. You don't want clients continuing to ask for that. So I think that you're going to have to figure out what that mix is going to be for your firm. What model are you going to be able to put out there and maintain profitability? So I think that's going to be a major shift. We've already seen that ramp up in the past few years with firms, but firms like mine, that's a one office, operates a little bit old school. I think now's the time where those are kind of things that we need to think about to maintain our competitive edge in the market. I also just go back to the staffing model. I think that staff is going to change. Commercial real estate's going to shift. And, my managing partner keeps telling me that that's a 2 to 3 year out shift. And I kind of fight back, and I think those great, real estate minds out there are going to jump on this sooner than later. We saw what 0809 did to real estate, so I think we're going to see some quick shifts in the commercial real estate market and how businesses operate in the office parks and buildings, and all of that is just, it's going to be different. So that's going to create, a different need for staff and who needs to be in the office, because work from home is not going away. We're going to deal with people's anxiety and their mental health when they come back. And some people are, at first going to be wanting to rush into the office. And I think that, we could see another wave. We don't know what this is going to do to us mentally in the long run. And that's going to push this work from home, which is going to push the commercial real estate market. So you're going to see a lot difference in how your staff looks, how your office looks, and, how you're putting services and pricing them out there.
Yeah, I mean, just to return to the discounts, I think this is a good time to be well versed in the impact of offering sort of across the board rate discounts. And anyone who, I mean, you can talk to attorneys who were practicing in 08, 09 and were paying attention to the impact of rates and how many years it took them to recover and get back up to normal rates once the economy was running well. So I do think it is an opportunity for folks to get well versed on the different types of offerings that they can give to clients, asking for some relief in the costs that they're getting from firms, and really provide caution against those across the board rate discounts, because they will be hard to recoup with many clients once hopefully things get better.
So I shared this with the group, and this was shared earlier with me by one of my colleagues. Mackenzie put out a great article today about law firms and what they're seeing during COVID-19 and comparing that to the 08-09 crash. So I would encourage all of you to go look at that, because it really does outline what industries they think are impacted, and then aligns that with law firms and how law firms are laid out. And it has a pricing component in there, and it talks about talking to your clients and how important that is. And I've heard that multiple times on the call today, how important that is. And, kind of breaking out of the idea that I can't call them when I don't have something specific to talk about related to a matter at hand. Let's throw that out the window and just call them. So
one thing on the pricing, just to jump in, is what's interesting about what's going on now, and how one thing that's different about 08-09 is 08-09 was kind of, a mortgage crisis and a crisis, CDOs, and that was a kind of more of a Wall Street, law firm and white shoe law firm crisis that those lawyers were primarily handling. What's interesting now is with the legislation that's coming out with PPP, with Main Street, that's every law firm, every CPA firm, every bank in the country is touching and feeling that that legislation in a way that they didn't in 08-09. 08-09 was more like, I can't help you. The economy's down. There's nothing I can provide. There's no real service for a lawyer to provide during that time. Whereas now there is something for us from a marketing and pitch perspective of this is something we can do. And there is that difference right now versus 08-09 where that didn't necessarily hold true.
I think that's spot on. Our attorney that's been helping people with PPP, the mindset was educating our attorneys, this helps your clients get money to also pay us. There's going to be more that, this helps them out. So, we've done a lot of consulting with people that, it's just a phone call. It was free of charge. There's not a lot of legal side to it, but, help them out, and see what you can do. And that benefit comes around later on, hopefully. And, so that's been prospective clients, current clients. But yeah, that's very true. There's money out there to be had, and, help your clients have the information to get it and get through those applications.
Yeah, which is all the more reason not to ghost your clients in this time, because there are opportunities out there. So whether you are, solidifying a relationship and telling them you're there for them in this time of, need and, scariness, or finding these opportunities and having these conversations that they might not be aware of. there's only benefits that can come from talking to your clients.
So a couple of times you all have touched on this, and I apologize because this is not coming from our prep call, but you've touched on it a number of times, so I'm going to ask anyways. Mental wellness and how we make sure that that is a focus when, even if we don't get back into offices, how do we make sure that we're checking in with people? And I know, Howard, I hope you don't mind me sharing this on our call, that you talked about 08, 09 and how it felt during that time for you as a practicing attorney. Do you mind sharing, and then maybe perhaps what you see happening at Womble, or what you plan to do with the team that you work on related to their mental wellness?
Sure. So I'm a late millennial lawyer. So I was graduating into the recession, graduating in 08, and then did the job until September of 09. So it was a year and a half of, involuntary vacation is what I call it. And it was a super lonely time. And because you back then just thought, you thought it was something you had done, or something that personally to you and your own experience. Whereas, then you read above the law and you realize, thousands upon thousands of lawyers were fired in 2009. So it's not just you. But at the same time, that feeling is definitely present now. And what we're all going through now rings true to me, at least what I'm going through, and that there's a bit of panic going on, and a bit of just the world's collapsing. And to the degree I can share information, have phone calls, my whole month of March was basically free, written off to a large degree. But at the same time, it really helped the social component and the mental and component of not being lonely. And the content I'm pushing out is part of the motivation is to share that so other people know what's going on, and what some items to consider are, and who to call if they ever need to talk to somebody.
Thank you for sharing that. And Cynthia, I know this is a personal mission of yours, so do you mind sharing?
Yeah, no, I don't mind at all. I think, the cruelty of COVID, in addition to taking lives, is it's incredibly isolating to people. And that causes a lot of struggle for folks emotionally and psychologically. So well-being is something that is really important to me. And since we've already given a couple links to LMA, I'll just continue along those lines. And, we conceived this idea last year for forming a well-being committee. And while LMA is not a well-being organization, we certainly are an organization interested in helping our members be most successful in their ability to do their work. And having good, strong sense of well-being for yourself leads to both personal and professional success. So we have launched our well-being committee, and we actually did a webinar, I think it was last week or the week before, it's a blur, but to sort of showcase the set of resources that we put on our website with much more information to come. We need to be talking about well-being. We need to be normalizing conversations around the struggles that people are feeling. Because if people can talk about it, they'll ask for help. They won't feel as isolated. And so it needs to be a continual part of our conversation. It does happen to be Lawyer Wellbeing Week as well this week. So I know that our firm has been helping promote that. We've been hitting that drum a little bit pretty consistently over the last several weeks, because we're hearing from our attorneys how they're struggling, and from our staff too. And so I do think that these calls and check-ins we have with people where we can connect with them, there's a reason why they're much more personal in nature. And that's a good thing. I think it's a really good thing. And I think we need to continue to put, sort of shine a light on the importance of this, because while it isn't the technical work, we all need to be feeling well in order to be able to do a really good job. Because if you're in fear or you're depressed, you're not, going to be able to do good work or produce. So it's important. I'm glad you brought it up.
Well, this is Mental Health Awareness Month. May is Mental Health Awareness Month, so I think it's appropriate to talk about now. And hopefully this is just, the start of many, many conversations. Michelle, did you have anything you wanted to add
I will be very honest that, this was not something that I bought into for a long time for our firm. We, again, are one office. We don't have heavy billable hour requirements. We very cordial kind of fun. We try to have fun and a lot of parties and things like that around the office. And, so I feel like I've done the things to help morale and, make people feel good about their jobs. And I just, for the longest time, I'll say that I thought the mental health stuff was really targeted at larger firms. And this has all been a huge shift for my mindset in that. It is not, this is, despite taking, take hours and workloads and whatever off of it, or where you live for that matter, that it is affecting everybody, like Cynthia said, and we don't know how people are going to react to this. Some people are have anxiety being at home, some people are going to have anxiety being back at work. And so, making sure that your people have the tools to take care of themselves is important. And we've been working on launching initiatives internally and started to advocate those things so people know. I encourage people, a lot of health plans have different things that you could just give to your people for free, just re-educating them, making sure they know where it is. Because, 2 months ago, they might not have needed it, and now it's very different. One thing that we did do is a return to work survey. We had about 5 questions asking people just general questions about coming back. And one of them was just, do you feel better being at home? And some people said yes. And so I really wanted to be careful about who I was forcing to come back to the office. And if people really had a reason, even if they weren't high risk or they weren't high exposure or they don't have childcare issues, some of the people that have said, yes, I would rather maintain my work at home are by themselves even. And so it's really just, starting that conversation of what your individual people are going to feel comfortable with. And so we've really tried to open the door and not force people back into the office. And actually just with the requirements, it kind of worked out pretty nicely for us. I have a solid group that wants to return. I kind of have a middle of the road, and then I'll be in the last group back kind of thing. So I encourage that. And actually a lot of people have reached out to me about that survey. I'm happy to share the questions. It's 5 quick questions, just kind of figuring out who are the best people to bring back, and having that mental health component in it is huge.
Well, and I think that, because the reality is if people are fearful to come back to the office, because this has been a very disruptive event, to put it mildly, right? If they're sitting in fear and they're, somebody coughs next to them, whether they're wearing a mask or not, how productive are they? How much work can they really do if you're just wondering if you were exposed to something? And you don't have to be in a risk category to have that level of anxiety around it. The other thing I'll just say as the legal industry, because I didn't add this caveat earlier, is, it's Lawyer Wellbeing Week this week, but we need to make sure that all professionals at firms are receiving support and information, and there's a mindfulness put on keeping everybody at the firm supported and having resources in order for their own well-being. And I think as individuals, self-care is really, really important through these times. So making sure that we're going up, if you have a yard outside just to get some fresh air, if you can't do that, that you're moving or you're doing some sort of yoga or meditation or whatever it is, that's going to make you happy and feel relaxed, carving time out to do that, because I don't know about you, but these days go by very quickly. I thought they'd be slow, but they're not. It's like I look down, it's 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and I don't know, I know where the day went, but it goes by fast. But then even as supervisors, being well-versed and connected to your team so that you're doing check-ins, what signs to maybe look for, you're asking supportive questions, you're well-versed yourself in order to be able to support your team. And not to be dark, but domestic violence is a really rough situation for anyone who is in a domestic violence relationship, and being aware of even things like that. So I'll give one more plug to LMA, and I just want to say that resource page, we have a number of links that people can follow, and you don't have to be a member in order to access that information. We're very purposeful in making sure that everybody has access to that. And there are a lot of other groups too that have aggregated good resources, but I'll point you to that one because I'm very familiar with it.
So we had a question for the survey, the rest of the survey questions, Michelle. What I'll do is if you will send those to me, I will send them to all of the participants so you all have access to what those questions are. So that'll be a follow-up email. So look for that after we're done. And Howard, I know you wanted to say something.
I was going to say too that we talked earlier about, reaching out to clients, not letting the phone ring. I mean, the same applies to your team and the people you work with and your colleagues. And, you know, there's a lot of value of just, even if, you know, someone says, hey, you have 5 minutes to talk, and they respond and say, no, I can't, I'm slammed. At least that person knows that they're loved by somebody else in the law firm. And, you know, there's also, don't forget about your people and the people that rely on you for, you know, guidance and advice, and that you supervise. So that's important. And then it's going to be interesting to see, like, you know, lawyers, some lawyers value FaceTime, and the partners want their associates in the office, and they want their admins in the office, and that pressure on the admins and on the associates to maybe go into the office in a situation that if they had a choice, would want to stay home in this current environment. It's, you know, as coronavirus kind of rolled across the country, the guidelines were basically like, you know, we were encouraging not to come in the office, or we would prefer it if you didn't come in the office. It'd be nice. It'll be interesting to see if there are going to be clear guidelines and rule, like what are going to be the go to office rules, and also in the context of layoffs and furloughs and wanting to be seen and all that, to make sure you're not on a list. I think that's TBD. I have no idea what Wombo's doing. It's just kind of something I've noticed over the past couple months. And what is that pressure going to be on everybody to show up that is more implicit and not necessarily in the piece of paper that the firm puts out?
Yeah, I think it really hinges on strong communication from leadership at the firm, and then team leaders, you know, sort of under that top tier of leadership. And as an example, in Seattle, because we were dealing with it so soon, in early March is when we went to an optional remote work. And we were finding that the attorneys were working remotely, but the staff weren't necessarily. And then our Seattle partner in charge sent out a very explicit note to the attorneys, just, you know, basically telling them that they needed to encourage their staff to work remotely, because we have a lot of legal assistants who are basically at retirement age and are in you know, one of the top risk categories. And that shifted things. I think firms just need to do a really good job of saying, no, we really mean it, and directing to certain groups to say, we need you to help us enforce this, so that if people aren't feeling comfortable being back, they know that they're supported and still working remotely. So I think that needs to be a key part of return to work plans for firms.
I think training around technology is going to play into that a lot too. I feel like the more senior attorneys want to come back because they think everything's just easier in their office, and some of that is just a lack of technical skills, whereas, you know, the associates are totally fine at home right now because they're that generation that is dealing with this all. So, you know, I mentioned doing more training videos, you know, putting out more in terms of, you know, how you can get through this and how you can be productive at home is going to be important around this. Because, yeah, when I look at the people that answer the survey, a lot of the more senior partners are the ones that are willing to come back. And I think it's just that used to being in the office. I like my space. Working at home feels hard. And again, it's not because they have kids or other interruptions it's just that they're used to it. So training around your new technology, I know we're all rolling out tons of technology right now, is going to be key to making sure your people can be successful at home.
So I'm gonna flip to hopefully a little bit of a brighter topic. And Cynthia mentioned early on in our conversation, necessity is the mother of invention. That in mind, are your firms, or have you seen firms that are being innovative, or even some of your clients perhaps, where they're changing and challenging themselves to do something differently? Maybe something worked in the past, but they're taking this opportunity to say, how could it be better? Or maybe there was something that was broken that no one ever fixed just because it was always how they had done it. And they're taking this opportunity to make that switch. Howard, are you seeing anything interesting, innovative, or challenging that's happening?
So one thing I've noticed is kind of just, you know, all lawyers get the random headhunter phone calls and emails that you're like, do you want to join a law firm in Minnesota? And you're like, no. But one item I've noticed is it's been more of in-house positions are opening up, both on the solicitation and even online. And, you know, who knows in this environment, but I could see an appeal to an in-house law department wanting to potentially grow their legal team since everybody is working remote and there's no magic to this, and it may be easier to actually move in-house in some ways right now, if you have life pressures going on with kids and whatnot. I know if I was in-house, I would be thinking of a strategy to grow the legal department right now and poach some really good lawyers just so that they can get some oxygen in their life from eliminate the billable hour and the client development side of things and just focus on law and their families.
Not to contradict anything that you said, Howard, but we love for people to focus on client development. That's that's who we are. But I know that that is an added pressure to also doing your billable work. Cynthia, how about you? Anything innovative you're doing or the firm's doing or that you've seen?
Yeah, and one thing we have kicked off a masterclass internal webinar series that I think has been incredibly well received. So I find people, so we're basically focusing on, actually it's even a couple times a week having half hour to maybe an hour, but most of them are half hour internal webinars where we're focusing on areas of practice that we're seeing an uptick as a result of COVID. So we're having attorneys present sort of a 101 version of any given topic area. We've seen a lot of associates partnering with partners to give these presentations. So it's a nice little internal way to get to know our attorneys. And I mean, our dance card is pretty full. We've been doing it for a couple of weeks. We're seeing a majority of our attorneys sign up for these, like 60–75% of our attorneys are on at any given time, and we're using Zoom so we can track to see how long they're on, and they've been incredibly well received. A lot of these can be parlayed into client presentations. So I wear a few different hats, and we're not missing the opportunity to have not just a practice area arm of our masterclass, but also a business of law and business development sort of tracks for that, because if people are really hungry to learn more, which we're finding they are, we want to make sure that there are certain things, like if we wanted to talk about pricing arrangements or getting feedback from clients or things like that, how to read firm financial reports, how to do a proper conflicts check, because we still get questions about how to, ask for waivers and even complete the forms from young partners. So we're doing that, and then certainly all the BD topics. So I feel like that has been something we will most likely continue because people seem hungry for it. And if we're not able to gather in person to talk to one another about what we do, it's a way for the attorneys to at least share what they know and have other people feel like they get to know them. And there's sometimes little personal aspects that are shared in the webinars, and more of that will probably suss out in the days to come. So that's been, I think, a good thing.
I love the title Masterclass. I think that's excellent.
We're totally cribbing it. It's all internal. We didn't really steal the logo or anything, but people they can relate to that because they get all of those ads in their Instagram feeds or just see it around, and it sounds legit. And who doesn't want to give a masterclass on something?
That's right. Michelle, how about your firm?
Something that we started this year a little bit before COVID, but dove into it a little bit more, is using our staff for some of our administrative stuff. Our firm just kind of had a divide. We're fine with putting our staff in front of our clients and them doing client work, but not having them so much behind the scenes with the firm stuff. And so we've taken this time as, there's a little bit of extra time out there, and some practices are slow, as an opportunity to review a couple policies. We're updating our handbook right now. Our shareholders are looking at their shareholder agreement, and we're making some necessary changes, some things that are the projects that kind of fall down the list, and using the staff that we would put around the table with the client doing those same exact projects and utilizing their time. So I think that that's really uplifting for some of our senior staff to be more involved in the operations of the firm, and it's hugely helpful to me. In addition to that, we've been allowing a little more education. I just approved a paralegal to go to a CLE yesterday, and some of that is just starting to tee up practices that I know are going to open up. We all know that bankruptcy is coming, and we hadn't had a ton of, we did in 08, 09, that slowed down a little bit for us. We know it's coming, and so making sure our people are up to speed with the things that are around the corner. So maybe not innovative, but planning ahead and, you know, where my staff support's going to be for the various practices and plugging people into areas that they haven't historically been part of, just because, you know, we're trying to avoid layoffs and all of that, but keep people busy.
So as we come to the top of the hour, I wanted to ask if any of you have a challenge for the folks who are here as a participant today. Anything you want to put out to them as we head into the great unknown?
I thought about this a little bit since you gave us a little bit of a heads up, but for me, my challenge is to think creatively. This is so new. We don't know what we're up against. So be creative, you know, throw ideas at the wall, see what can help. Think about, you know, we've all talked about, we're changing our billing processes. You know, we've all been aching to get to electronic billing for years, and this made that happen. But also, you know, how could your departments work together and come up with creative ideas that are going to improve things? You know, just like, you know, we have Zoom videos and webinars. So now I have marketing helping IT to create videos for training to put out to people. So just thinking through, you know, staffing is going to get creative, like I talked about just now. You know, where can you add creativity into processes and procedures in your firm to help your overall operations and just help your client service? So I challenge people to be creative. Don't think about the old ways.
How about you, Howard?
I would say one thing that could happen is, I guess firms could do a better job of generally maybe, is allowing their people and encouraging people to become proactive and encouraging people to take an initiative and take a stab at something. Like, I mean, now would be a great time to go through everyone's bios and say, hey, you got a crappy bio, let's fix it. Your headshot is from 5, 6, 7 years ago. Do you have a new one? If not, like, you know, we can't arrange it in coronavirus, but like, let's fix up some of these things that you just haven't gotten time to, or that someone else could do that has less time. Like, I hate my bio, like, but I haven't fixed it because I've been neck deep in coronavirus for 10 weeks, but I'm on all the marketing material. And, you know, it's, there's a disconnect between what's my bio saying and what's in the marketing and stuff like that, where that the lawyer's never going to come up and kind of raise their hand, especially if they're more of a junior lawyer. The equity partners might, but things like that can, like, who are you pitching and what do they look like? Not what do they physically look like, but what do they look like when you see what's on the screen when you pull them up, and that connecting the dots from that perspective and making sure what's on the bio says what they're doing and what kind of maybe they'd be doing now, maybe different than what they were doing 6, 7, 8 weeks ago. Like, I have nothing on coronavirus on my bio, but that's all I'm doing now. So things like that. I'm
desperate to go in and add that to your bio, Howard. That'd be a great thing to have in there. All right, how about you, Cynthia?
Yeah, I will add, folks should update their representative matters too. That's a pain point for me. So
absolutely.
I agree. I think taking advantage of this disruption, people are in a different mindset, and certainly they can only handle so much. So, you know, you need to be careful with what we're doing, but certainly it is an opportunity to look at things differently. So even like with our paperless pre-bills, we're also going to work on some time entry standards so that they're much more client useful, focused, and consistent across all of our teams. I guess my challenge too is be empathetic with the clients, with each other. Just, you know, folks, counterparts at other firms, I think we're in for a long go. And the more we can constantly remember to be supportive of one another, the better it is going to be for everybody, whether it's building relationships or just helping somebody who might be, you know, in a crisis and you might not be aware of it. So I think we just need to keep on that, because it's easy when you're exhausted to forget. And this can be exhausting if this goes on for a long period of time. So that's my challenge.
So I just want to say, we're at the top of the hour. We didn't have anybody other than asking for the survey questions chime in with any questions. So What I'm going to do as a follow-up to this is I will send out an email. I will include Michelle's survey questions. I will also include contact information for our panelists. So if anybody wants to reach out to them directly and ask any questions or offer a word of support or advice, I'm sure that they would welcome that. I want to say thank you from Society 54. Thank you all for being on here and sharing, being very vulnerable and open and sharing all kinds of information with us. We really do appreciate it. And since this was considered a happy hour, I'm going to end with a toast to everyone. The past is a place of reference, not a place of residence. The past is a place of learning, not a place of living. So I am cheersing to you all with my empty cup to what's next. So cheers to what's next for everyone. And we look forward to seeing you on our next webinar, which is May 21st at 5 p.m. Eastern time. And we will send out more information about that as well. So thank you all.
Thank you. Thanks so much, Heather, for having us.
Yeah. Bye, everyone.